Hello, everybody. We're going to get started here. Just 1 second. Welcome to the show. This is the Johnny Cleveland podcast. Yes, and welcome to the Wednesday edition of the Johnny Cleveland podcast. Yes, it's September. That song we're hearing on the podcast from Earth, Wind, and Fire, one of my favorite groups, one of my favorite albums going way back to these September days. So we're halfway through the month of September. Man, it's going fast. Before you know it, Halloween will be here, Thanksgiving, Christmas. My wife and I are talking about going Christmas shopping early, so we can beat the crowds. Everyone's shopping online, but it does sound like things are kind of picking up around the area. I know my wife works in some retail, and their business has been picking up quite a bit over the last several weeks. So we're definitely in the midst of still this pandemic that's going on, 7 months now. So welcome to the show. If you're watching on the stream, thank you for following. You can comment on the show here, and I've got you can reach us on Facebook and Twitter. Again, it's the J Cleveland Pod on Facebook and Twitter. And if you're watching the Indians game, I'm decked out in my Indians old gear here. We're going to talk Indians here right now, and then we're going to talk a little bit about the Browns. I'm trying to recover from that awful experience. It's really tough being a Browns fan. If you haven't read my article on my blog on the jclevelandpod.com, I write some articles, and I wrote an article after the game that just talked about what us fans, our diehard fans, have been watching for years and years and years. And what we saw on Sunday was really bad. And after listening to the last 3 days of commentators nationally and locally talk about just all the issues with the Browns, this is a very big game tomorrow night. The Browns will be playing the Cincinnati Bengals. It'll be on national TV. And the good news is, we talk about records with the Browns, and we're going to talk about Indians here in just a second. We'll come back to the Browns. But the Browns, just as for record's sake, in the article I wrote, we talked about since 1999, their record is 120 and one tie. That was 2 years ago when we played the Pittsburgh Steelers, and we should have won that game in overtime. It was sloppy, rainy, and both teams actually missed extra field goals. Anyway, prior to that, I decided to look back at the records of the Brownies going back to their last championship back in 1964, and they had a very steadier record. They were more 500-ish wins and losses for opening week one games. So this is relatively, new. It's old, but it's new in the history of the Browns. There's a lot of reasons for that, and I'm going to get into that a little bit on my opinion and share that. But so the Indians are playing right now. If you're watching the Tribe, they are playing the Chicago Cubs tonight again. And again, the Indians have lost 7 straight. I would not have thought a week ago, considering everything that we know about the Indians, and we know that they stink with their offensive side of things. I thought their pitching would keep them in most games. But between the pitching and the errors on the defense and still lack of hitting, the Indians blew it again last night. They kept playing from behind. Actually, they had the lead. They were up 3-1, gave up a 2-run homer. Cookie pitched a pretty decent game, but he gave up a 2-run homer. The Cubs eventually took the lead 5-3. In the top of the 9th inning last night, Frankie Lindor hit an opposite field home run. If you didn't catch it, it was on pretty late, and tied the game up at 5, which is great. And the Indians are working offensively. I mean, they were working last night. You could see that they were really pressing to try to get that win. And again, though, the bottom of the 9th, our pitching, Whitgren hit 2 batters, one with the bases loaded that brought in the winning run for the Cubs, and the Cubs won it on a hit by a pitch, which is pretty pathetic. You just can't do that. And so the Indians have lost 7 in a row. Aaron Savales is pitching. I'm not sure. I was watching the game right now. I've got it on my phone here. If anyone wants to give me an update, it looks like the Indians did score a run. They're up 1-0 in the top of the first, so that's great. I don't know all the details. If anybody's watching the show wants to give me those details, you can comment on the show. If you haven't commented, you'd like to do that. We can put those comments right here. Actually, we do have a comment. Let's see. It better be a good one, right? Oh, there you go. Stacy, thank you for sharing your comment. I don't have the helmet behind me. Usually I will hang, or I'll have the helmet nearby. It's nearby. Stacy's husband Bruce is the one who created that helmet, and it's a classic, and I enjoy making sure that people can see that in the stream, but I don't have that tonight, so I'll have to do that for tomorrow's show. We're going to come tomorrow night. I'm very excited tomorrow. Well, hopefully the Browns win, and we'll have a happier post game after that. But we're going to have a post game show, our dog post game show after the Browns game. It's going to be very late. If you're on the East Coast here, it'll probably be at 11:30 or midnight. So if you're those early birds and you like to get to bed by 9 o'clock, you might have to turn on my podcast either on Facebook or Twitter or on my new YouTube channel, the Johnny Cleveland YouTube channel, to watch that. But I have some special guests. We're going to be bringing Matt and Mariah and Alec all back at the same time. I'm very excited to have them on the show tomorrow night. We're going to kind of hopefully watch the game and together. And well, they're in different parts of the country. We're going to bring everybody together via satellite and have a little conversation, and excited about that. And hopefully the Browns win tomorrow night. I'll have my prediction at the end of the show. I've been looking at some past history with the Bengals and the Browns. But anyway, so we're still talking about the Indians here. Not looking so good. Right now, they're 26 wins, 22 losses. They are in the 8th spot for the wild card for the playoffs, which, a week ago they were in 3rd or 4th, so they've dropped significantly. The New York Yankees have jumped ahead of them at the number 7 spot. The good thing is that the 9-10 spots, I think it's like, I don't know if it's the Toronto Blue Jays or I think it's the Seattle Mariners, are 4 games back with about 13 games to go. So, the Indians are still in good shape, but they're playing the Cubs, and the Cubs are tough. And the Indians do not look very good right now, especially with their pitching. The errors on the defensive side of things are just atrocious. I think last night there was a play late in the game where our third baseman dropped the ball. The catch, it was a bad throw to the catcher then, and the catch, it was just it looks like the bad news bears right now. And it's tough being a Cleveland fan this last week, I have to admit. But hopefully we'll get things going. Turning a little bit more back to the Browns. Again, tomorrow night, they're going to be playing the Cincinnati Bengals. The good news, record-wise, is that in Game 2s for the Browns, since coming back in 1999, the Browns actually have a 12-19 record. So it's not as pathetic as the 1-20-1 record, which is progress, right? All week, all we're hearing right now is about Baker Mayfield and Odell Beckham Jr. And, I've talked endlessly about Baker, and I'm concerned, like all the folks that have been talking about him for the last 3 days. His item we talked about on the post game after the game Sunday. He's not seeing things very well. I don't know if he's seeing ghosts when he's throwing the ball, but it's definitely a mental thing with Baker. I've even noticed when he's interviewed after games. I don't know if anybody watches this as closely as I do, but some of his very basic gestures with his like his mouth, he seems like has added some jittery little things. I'm probably the only one in the world that notices it, but I've watched him interviewed other times, and he just looks like he's just lost something. I don't know if the Progressive commercials or now the Hulu commercials are getting to him. And I think this is the bigger part of this, and I've talked to some people since the game on Sunday, family members and relatives that have watched the Browns as they were a great team in the 40s and the 50s and the 60s, and watching that group. Obviously, this happens with a lot of teams this day and age, but it's money. And these many players today play for the game, but there are a lot of players that, especially when you get to this level of game, that they're not necessarily playing as a team or for a team. The great Browns teams of the 40s and 50s with Paul Brown running them, they were very dedicated, and they won because they worked together as a team. Obviously, everything we've heard in the last couple of days about Odell Beckham supposedly being on the trade block again, who knows? It could happen. His body language in the game on Sunday was pathetic, and I know it's a lot of things. Baker Mayfield is not throwing the ball accurately at all. He continues to throw the ball high behind the players, and I mean I am putting a lot of blame on Baker. Stefanski, our coach, is new. That obviously hurt us playing. And on the game Sunday, hopefully we'll turn it around. As far as Beckham goes, if he continues to be the nuisance that he can be in a clubhouse and not be supportive of his teammates, which I'm concerned that that's going to start shedding its light pretty quickly here, especially if they have a horrible game tomorrow. Probably Beckham will be gone. I don't know if that's best for talent wise, but for the clubhouse and for this talented team, it's probably what's best. Stefanski's a very, he seemed overwhelmed on Sunday. I was very concerned when Stefanski said before the game, now this happened before Sunday when he was being interviewed and talking about the Browns' chances on Sunday. And his comment, one of them was, well, there's 16 games, 8 teams win, there's 16 games. So 16 teams win, 16 teams lose. And I just didn't like that. I don't like that philosophy. I know he's a new coach and he's probably over his head anyway, and he knows that, but I want a coach that wants to go out and win. I don't know what he's telling his players individually, but be kind of ho-hum, well, 16 teams win, 16 teams lose. When I heard that before the game on Sunday, and I know Baltimore is a really good team, and maybe that's the saving grace that a lot of people have been talking about, especially the last day with the Browns, that Baltimore is a very solid team. But there's so many concerns about like Baker Mayfield still, and the fact that Lamar Jackson was taken last in the first round of the same draft that Baker Mayfield went number 1. And if you just look at Baker Mayfield and you look at Lamar Jackson, there is significant growth and difference. Lamar Jackson's throwing has become more accurate, and Baker Mayfield is still dancing around there with his footwork. He just seems nervous. So we'll see where things go. I do think, coming back to this whole issue of team and money, you look at some of these players now, even at the younger age, high school kids. And I know that we're going through a pandemic, but I'm, back here in Ohio, there are some kids that are actually foregoing their high school senior year of football so that they can start preparing for college. And they're not even finishing out their senior year of high school. You have college players that are, foregoing their juniors and senior years. That's been happening for a while, but now we've had, just today. Now this is a bit of good news for Ohio State. Wyatt Davis, we'll talk about that here right now. With the Buckeyes, that's a whole nother story. With the Big Ten coming back, but Wyatt Davis is an offensive lineman for the Buckeyes, and he had said that he was going to go ahead and just go off to the draft for the NFL and forego his year with the Buckeyes because they weren't going to play. Well, now they're going to play, and but it's just this idea that these players are looking at playing the game, and I don't honestly know how many of these players really are going into it as being wanting to be a great teammate. And that's what really makes the difference with some of these really good teams that you see year in, year out. When I heard New England In one of my games, I picked a bunch of games this last week. It wasn't too good. My record is 2-4. I'm looking here. I think I won. I can't remember which games. Well, I won the Buffalo New York Jets game, and I lost the New England. I thought New England would get beat by the Miami Dolphins. I don't know why I did that, but speaking of New England, Julius Edelman, I think, is the receiver for New England, and he was talking after the game about his new quarterback, Cam Newton, and it was just interesting to listen to him, and you hear why teams like New England are successful, because he's talking about playing the game like he would reminded him of when he would play the game in his backyard, or when he Julius Edelman went to Kent State University and playing there just for the love of the game. And you don't hear that all the time from players who are selfish and really just want to be in the limelight. And there's so many players that just want to be in progressive commercials, and they need to put their head down and grind and try to do better for the team. And until that happens for Cleveland, Cleveland will continue to struggle. I think Stefanski, I'm going to stick by Stefanski. I think that, his first year, we'll see what happens in the next several games. These first 4 games, like some folks I've heard have said, this is like the preseason. So for some of the veteran teams like Green Bay and Aaron Rodgers, who had a really good start to his season, he ended up with 4 touchdowns. He's definitely wanting to tell Green Bay he's not going anywhere. So we'll see what happens. I am optimistic about tomorrow night. It'll be nice that Cleveland will have some fans in attendance. I'm excited to see what that looks like. I know many of the games this last week there were not fans. I know out in Kansas City they had fans, which was kind of cool. The last few games, over the weekend, there weren't many that did. I think down in Florida, their stadium had fans. So Cleveland will be allowed to have 6,000 fans there, and it'll be fun to see. So part of the Browns news, just kind of finishing up with that, Austin Seibert, who just blew it as the kicker. He missed the extra point. He missed a very crucial 3 points. Also later in the game, he was released by the Browns, who then the Cincinnati Bengals, who we happen to be playing tomorrow, picked him up because their kicker, Bullock, injured himself. Apparently, though, Bullock is still going to kick tomorrow in Cleveland, but I would not be very surprised if for some chance that Cincinnati is not telling the truth on that. And my biggest fear is that Austin Seibert, a former Brown from Sunday, now will kick for Cincinnati and will score, maybe even win the game for Cincinnati. Wouldn't that be horrible for us Browns fans? David Njoku is still, he got injured at the end of the game, so he will be out for at least 3 games on the injured reserve list. Who else do we have here? We've got, let's see, Greedy Williams still for the Browns is out, cornerback, and Kevin Johnson, who has the slashed liver, he's still going to be out. Interesting for the Cincinnati Bengals, Geno Atkins, I think he's a linebacker or defensive end, he's going to be out for Cincinnati. So I think the Browns will run the ball like they should have run more. I know they were down by a lot and they had to abandon a little bit, but you can't give Chubb just 10 runs and Hunt 12 runs. Chubb's got to have 20 carries. Hunt's got to have 10 or 12. And I think they will run the ball a lot tomorrow night. I don't look for either team to light it up. I think both teams are going to be searching for scores, and both teams are going to feel probably a lot of pressure, especially Cleveland. It'll be good to see Joe Burrow, or Joe Schmo, like Mariah likes to call him. Tomorrow, I'm anxious to see how that all pans out with him going up against Baker. Let's see what else we got. The other, just little things, with Odell. I mentioned this before. We talked to him about him, but Odell only caught 4 touchdown passes last year, and compared that to previous years in as a New York Giant, where he was catching between 10 and 12 touchdown passes. It's got me concerned, and I don't want Odell to get in the. I mean, he's already got in the Baker Mayfield's head, and I don't see that finishing up very well. So we'll see what happens with that. If he gets traded down the line, probably wouldn't be surprised to hear that. Many of us Browns fans aren't going to be shocked by that. But Baker's on thin ice right now, and he's better. He's got to show up. If he does not show up at tomorrow, Case Keenum, the backup, is waiting in the wings, and Baker's going to have some serious issues moving forward. So my prediction, early on in the year about the Browns, I think I picked them at going 11-5 with when Mariah and Matt were on the show, 10-6. I said also that after the first quarter, the record would reverse, and so that's kind of where it is. I think the Browns would be fortunate to get to 7 wins, 8 wins, looking at how they performed at least after one game. But one game, especially the first week, does not mean much. So we'll go forward. Let's see, what else do we got here? So I'm excited about tomorrow night. We're gonna we won't have a pregame. We'll just watch the game with all of you, and then we're gonna have a post game, our dog post game show again tomorrow night. We will come on now. If the Browns are getting blown out, and the game's very lopsided, we may come on during the game tomorrow night for our post game show. Especially if I don't have to stay up till midnight, right? So. But we're going up to Cleveland later this week. I'm excited to be doing that. Going to be hanging out with some of the relatives and other big Browns fans. So we'll have probably a lot to talk about around the barbecue. So thank you, Chris, and the other relatives. Looking forward to seeing everybody, and Laura, my wife's side of the family as well. We're going to be seeing some of her family. So speaking just of other family affairs here, I did want to give another shout out to my son, Grant Man. Grant has, the exceptional bowler. The last week we've bowled 12 games, and Grant has bowled over 109 of those 12 games. So we are shooting for an Olympic PBA bowler, and we'll see where that goes. But he continues to do well. He's doing his schoolwork virtually still at his school, and the teachers are awesome today. They planted seeds for their new plants, and we've got it growing along the windowsill. So we'll see how the seedling grows, and we'll see. So my prediction, looking back for the Browns for tomorrow night, the records of the Bengals lead the Browns all time in the record for, I think it's like 51 wins to 43 wins for the Browns. So Cincinnati holds the lead there. The last several years, Cincinnati has pretty much dominated these teams, and when they play each other. So the Browns have won the last couple, going back to when Baker Mayfield has had some good success the last year or two. But last year at Christmas, Cincinnati won that game. I think we went down there to Cincinnati, and we were falling apart, falling on our faces already, and we just wanted to be done with the season, and we did. We lost, I think, 31-23. So predicting this game, there's a ton of pressure on the Browns, and specifically Baker Mayfield. Considering where Baker Mayfield is and how he handles pressure, I'm very nervous about tomorrow. Now, the people nationally, several people, prominent sports guys that you might hear, are picking the Browns to win the game, and I'm going to hold to that. I'm going to predict the Browns will win the game tomorrow night. I believe the final score will be a low score. It'll be 13-10. It will be the final score. Somewhere along the line, our new kicker, Cody Parquet, will actually kick the go-ahead score, and the Browns will hold on for dear life. Maybe Joe Schmo throws an interception late in the game, and one of our DBs, like Denzel Ward, picks it off, and the Browns win again. So that's my prediction. The Browns are going to win 13-10, and we'll have a good, fun time tomorrow on the post-game show. I sure do hope that you stop over and listen to that post-game. It'll be a lot of fun. Again, we're going to have Mariah, Matt from Seattle, and then Alec, who's up in Michigan at Hope College. Speaking of Hope College, I just, with all the COVID things and everyone's, trying to do their best and following the protocols, and his school up there at Hope is doing that. They have been very sending a lot of good communication to family and parents and the students, and they've had an increase at some of the other schools in the area with COVID, people getting symptoms, but they're keeping everybody alert and aware, and they're reminding the students constantly what they need to be continually doing to maintain social distance and things like that. So I'm very impressed with the lengths that some of these schools, my son's school at Hope, are doing, and I give those folks a lot of credit. I know these are unprecedented times for so many of us. I'm back working too, virtually with our school, and it's been a work in progress, a lot of fun. But I can't wait to see these kids and students in person and our staff. So looking forward to that time. All right, so the Browns are going to win tomorrow night, and you're going to hopefully pop over here again for our post-game show after the game, and look forward to that. And we talk about a Browns victory over the Bengals. All right, so I hope you all have a great evening, and we will catch up with you tomorrow night. And until then, remember, everybody, to keep smiling. Take care, everybody. Thank you for watching, everybody. Shout out to everybody who stayed with me. Thanks for the comment there. And I'll have the Browns helmet beside me, hopefully, for the next podcast. So everybody have a good night and keep smiling. Take care.